Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast, where I, Selena Knight, share strategies, interview retail revolutionaries, and delve into the minds of e-commerce experts to help you grow a profitable, independent retail or e-commerce business. If you're stuck in a rut, or if you feel like business is way harder than it should be, or you've overachieved all of the things that you've set out to and are wondering what to do next, or how do I even make this better? I know that you're going to love today's episode. If you're stuck in a rut, feel like business is way harder than it should be, or you've achieved all of the things that you set out to and are wondering what next, or how do I even make this better, then I know that you're going to love today's episode. One of the biggest problems that we see here in the agency side of our business is retail and e-commerce stores that just don't have proper branding. Now, branding may not be what you're thinking about right at the beginning. It's not just your logo. So today I have on the show someone a little bit special. I've got Elizabeth Guthrie, who is a brand strategist, but most importantly, she is our creative director. She's got over 20 years experience in PR and marketing and design. And you know what? Just like all the people in our business, she knows what it's like to run a retail business because she's been there and she's done it, not once, but twice. So Elizabeth brought up in a team meeting the other day, this analogy, and she always has very, very strange analogies, but she brought up this comment about how so many brands, and to be fair, it's a lot of brands that we work with, they have this disjointed ad hoc branding. And it was like, her analogy was, it's like turning up to a speed date in your pajamas. And of course, I had to get her to expand on that because her brain is very creative and my brain is very type A and working in dog points. So on the show today, we have Elizabeth, my creative doctor. I think she is that a Freudian slip or what? She fixes all the creative issues in the business to talk about how disjointed branding is like turning up to a speed date in your pajamas. Hey there, Elizabeth.
Hello, darling boss lady.
We have been saying for years that you should be on the podcast, and we keep sort of penciling it in, and it never quite happens for whatever reason. But today I've got you on the show and we are going to talk your favorite thing in the world, which is branding.
Branding. Excellent.
Yep. Before we jump into that though, I think we have to let everybody in on that little secret, which is, how did you and I meet?
Oh, I love our story.
A good brand story.
It is a great brand story. So Sal, you and I both had shops we opened. I think we worked out it was within like 2 weeks or something of each other. And ironically, we sold within a day of each other. And we'd sort of known each other. I think we're on the radar, but I was in Brisbane, you were in Sydney, and a supplier. It's usually you that tells this story. So it's funny that I'm telling it.
That you get to tell it, yeah.
I get to tell it my way, in the curly brain way. One of our suppliers had, I think you'd been looking for some stock and I had it all. And she said, "Oh, contact Elizabeth and she'll send some down to you." And you said, "Oh, I'm not contacting my supplier. That's
my competition.
My competition. That's ridiculous." But in the end you rang and it was the start of a beautiful business relationship that has turned into a friendship and back into a work relationship again. In so much that we would quite often every week we would speak on a Thursday, and often it took us all day to have a 15-minute conversation, which has not changed a lot, no. I might say. But we'd be in the shop and we'd say, "Oh, I've got a customer, I've got to go," or "Oh, I've got to wait," and "Oh, I've got to do this thing." So we do quite often say we are the yin to each other's yang. We're kind of the same brain. Quite often, Sal, you send me a message and say, "I'm using the brain today, don't do anything." So it's quite exciting to be on your show. Finally.
Yes. So
yes.
You love brands, you love branding.
Love it.
And you love design, which is what you do, and copywriting, which is all the things that you do in our business.
Yeah.
But you also come up with some very weird-ass analogies. And quite often I have to get you to explain them. So was it last week or the week before when you were saying that we were talking about customers branding? And just to give people a little bit of a backstory, we have a client, very reputable business, multiple stores, been around for a very long time, their branding is a bit crap. Look, and we've told them this. If they're listening to the podcast, it's okay. We've told them this.
They know. We
They
love
know.
them anyway.
We
But
still
it's
love
not
them anyway.
unusual. Like really, I'm constantly amazed at businesses that I think what that people would think are very successful in terms of looking at their financials and their bank, you know, they're cracking 7 figures and their branding is really rubbish. And I think, well, if they could lift their game, they could probably, you know, in some cases they could double their turnover with, you know, just speaking to their customers. So yeah, I am constantly amazed at, and I think it's because branding is a really intangible asset. It's something that's a bit arty, it's a bit creative, it's a bit woo-woo. It's really difficult to measure. And often the measurement comes many, many months after the investment. And so I think it is often really hard to get over the line, but super important.
So people are probably sitting here thinking, and this is a very big misconception, so why don't they just get a logo update? Like if their branding is that crap, you know, pay someone $1,000 and get a new logo. But that's not how it works, is it? When we talk about branding, it is not, I mean, the logo is almost the last thing that you think about.
Yeah. And, you know, quite often I get people come to me saying, oh, I think I just need a new logo. And I think, oh my God, the logo is like truly is the last thing usually that you need to change. And it probably help maybe if I unravel a little bit and go back to how the speed dating thing works, and then we can get an idea of why the logo is the last thing that you change.
I think that's a good idea.
What do you think?
Because all the people who are thinking who are very linear brained like me are like, speed dating in your pajamas?
Yeah. Well, you know, this is I read somewhere recently that apparently analogizing, not even a word, but apparently creating obsessive analogies is a really ADHD brain thing. It's a way that you get all this crazy thought and you go, okay, this is a way that I understand of what I'm talking about. So for most of my clients that I work with and your clients, they are they're very linear. They like the auditing process. They like processes. They like procedures. They find creative stuff quite overwhelming, and they quite often hear a term and they think, oh yeah, I think I know what that is. But it's not until you explain it to them in a way that impacts their everyday life that they start to see that overlaid against their business. So it's quite a useful tool, using the old analogy. So I should also say really early on, I know that the title of our podcast is, it's like ignoring your branding is like wearing your pajamas on a speed date. And I have to say, for transparency, that I have a very fine line between pajamas and day clothes. I think that's very healthy. In fact, I may be wearing what could be construed as a pajama.
I think COVID has given rise to the whole normalizing of loungewear.
Of the loungewear. I absolutely agree.
But we digress. I'm pulling us back on back track because we are very good at digressing and not everybody wants to hear our ramblings.
So I'm not even sure that speed dating is a thing anymore. You know, it's all about Tinder and the swipe here and the swipe there, which, to be quite honest, sounds like the third ring of hell to me. But I'm all about talking to my folks and meeting them on their dating platform, and my folks totally get, and I suspect yours too, totally get what I mean by speed dating. But just in case you don't know what a speed date is, in a nutshell, you go along to an organised event with the view that you're going to meet Mr. Right, Miss Right, let's say Mr. for the time being, Mr. Right, or Mr. Right now. And they, you know, for the most part, the free wine and the bar snacks are far more appealing than the potential liaisons. But if you think of this as this kind of event, it's a bit like your business pulling together everything you've got to offer. You're going off on this date. You're going to make the best of yourself.
You've got 2 minutes to do it.
So then beforehand, you've had to have a think about the kind of people that you might want to meet. You've got to work out what your type is. And the magical powers that be take your list and they match it off with a whole bunch of other lists. So in business, this is a little bit like doing a Google search or thinking about, oh, where am I going to find the kind of shop that I'm going to find that product in? Is it going to be in a Westfield or in a mall? Is it going to be in a boutique? Having a little bit of think about where am I going to find my product, my type. So then on the night of your speed date, you turn up, you've got about, I don't know, it depends how upmarket your speed date is, but you can have anywhere from like 2 minutes to 10 minutes to basically lay the person, to proffer to the person in front of you your personal elevator pitch. You've got to look at what they're wearing. You're kind of judging the answers to the questions. You're going to try to work out if they're an axe murderer or if they've got some weird foot fetish. And then a bell rings and you move on and you do the same thing for the next person.
So this is constant sales mode, isn't it? You are selling yourself.
You're like selling yourself,
again.
but you make it. But I think the important thing is it's not just that you're sitting there selling yourself like it would be in, say, a networking event. And this is where the speed dating analogy is, there's a nuance to that, is in a networking event, it's about saying, this is me, this is what I've got, this is who I am. Are you interested in any of that? Whereas a speed date is not only about saying, this is who I am, this is what I like. It's also about ascertaining whether the person in front of you connects with those things.
Yes.
So that's a little bit like the research phase. It's the walking up and down the strip mall. It's the walking through the mall. It's trawling through websites. It's doing your research, basically.
Yeah.
So at the end of the night,
I was going to say, and let's be honest, we are all guilty of first impressions.
Oh my God.
We will, depending on what you're wearing, and depending on, and this, we say this, we're pulling the analogy in, depending on what you're wearing or what your website looks like, what your shop front looks like, how people greet you, what the products are displayed like, that is the same, that same snapshot that you get when you meet someone in person for the first time, and you're weighing all this stuff up in the back of your brain.
Absolutely. And all of that is sending a really clear message to people. Hence why we say, imagine if you went on that speed date and you were wearing your pajamas. Nothing says, I really didn't want to make an effort to appeal to you because I wore my pajamas.
We all have this picture going in our brain right now.
Yeah, turning up at a speed date in your pajamas. See, that's exactly right. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. So, when you're on that speed date, it is really important to get that message across really, really quickly. And there's some fabulous stats, and I picked these up the other day, is that an incredible 94% of people, there was a survey done into human factors in marketing, and 94% of people responded and said the first impression of a brand was based entirely on visual factors alone. 94%. That's, pretty much everybody is saying, whether you consciously take that in or otherwise, you are making a judgment about a brand, a person, a business, a product as soon as you see it.
And when we say see it, let's just clarify here. We're not talking about seeing a logo, are we? We're talking about that first interaction. It could be a Facebook post. It could be somebody mentioning your store to somebody else.
Absolutely. And I think that's where people get really hooked up, is that they think that their branding is just about their graphics and their website.
And the colours.
Which are all important things. And if you think about that on a speed date, like what you're wearing is important, but it's also the whole picture. Because if you turned up at, just focusing on the outside appearance is like getting dressed up and finding the perfect outfit. And this is where we're talking about the obsession with looking at the logo. It's like the obsession of looking at what you look like. Okay, I've gone to the shop, I've got the perfect dress, I've had my hair done, I've got my nails done, I look amazing, I'm going to present this amazing outcome, this exterior appearance, and you get there and you haven't worked on your elevator pitch, or you don't know how to answer, you don't know how to have a general conversation with somebody, your conversation starters are non-existent, you don't really know what you like doing on the weekend. I mean, how embarrassing to sit at a speed date and you look amazing and person on the other side of the table says, so tell me a bit about yourself. And you sit there going, oh, no, got a great outfit.
Or you do nothing but talk about yourself. Like, you're not listening to what they have to say. And I think it works both ways, doesn't it? Like, so many people want to shout, buy my, you know, the equivalent of buy my stuff. Like, in your case, it would be like, hey, buy me. But so many brands are just like, buy my stuff. We have an analogy. It's buy my, all these over and over again. It's just like, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. But actually, people don't connect with buying stuff. People connect with people. People connect with brands that have the same ideals, the same ethos, the same vision. They want the same things, or they're going to, so it's not personify, the opposite. It's going to, like, when you join a brand, when you buy from a brand that is like Tom Shoes, for example, you're buying that because you want other people to know that you care about other people.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
You're
I think it's
attaching
the
yourself.
purpose. You know, I think that what people, and we're seeing it more and more, it's going to become, you know, in a really busy marketplace, the people that stand out and the stores and the retailers that stand out are those that can communicate their purpose, what they do differently. And it's not about just saying, you know, if you, again, let's use this analogy of a speed date. If you were on a speed date and you'd already worked out that, that, you know, tradies were your type. You know, I like a kind of a handy person, someone who can just pitch in and get stuff done, you know, and they salt of the earth, whatever. I know, you know, I'm generalizing, and if you'd already worked out and you turned up at your speed date and your exterior appearance said, I don't know that the tradesman thing was quite a good idea, but, and you turned up and you were super glamorous and you had a pair of 6-inch stilettos and a lace mini dress and blah, blah, blah. And then you sat down and you said, oh yeah, I'm really into whatever the complete opposite is to what this type of person that you're looking for is into. You know, it jars. You know, you need to know what you stand for. You need to know how you connect with that person. When you, if you were in the same position and you sat down and said, oh, I really love renovating houses, or I'm really into gardening, or
I love sport. Most tradies
or
like
if you
sport.
found a sport, I really love sports, or on the weekend I love going around and collecting furniture. And that's not to suggest that in every relationship in a business sense that you are always looking for a customer who is exactly the same as you. In fact, often it's completely the opposite. Your customers are looking for someone who fills a need or a gap that they don't have.
Yeah. This is actually something we talk about in module 4, I think, of Scale Your Store, and how understanding what those leverage points are. And I was just thinking when you said that you don't have, a lot of people think that in order to have that connection point, it has to be an eco thing or a giving thing. Yeah. But you are totally okay if you say the thing that I give people is fun or happiness, like chubby shorts.
You know, look, it's no different to saying that the thing I give people is guilt-free, fast fashion. You know, if that's the thing you give, the people who are looking for guilt-free, fast fashion are going to come to you. But if you say, oh, we have a brand and we look after our workers and we do this and we do this, and it's absolutely false, you're going to attract a whole lot of people who go, that's not really what I thought you were selling me here.
Or I just don't care.
I don't care.
But
yeah.
And for a lot of people, the thing that's important to you may not be important to your customers, which means you've got that, you're in your pajamas at the speed date. You've got that disjointedness, which is either you aren't attracting the right people, so they're not going to be loyal. They're not going to spend a lot of money with you. They might turn up once and never come back again. Or maybe if you're not sure about what you want, you need to get really, really clear, because just like we've gone through this exercise, we do it every single year about who is our customer right now. Because who it is right now is not the same as who it was 5 years ago.
Year. Yeah, exactly.
Or even last year. Yeah. That has definitely changed, because your business evolves and your customers evolve.
The flip side of that is also this really classic, is that people fall into the trap of, and I particularly see this in retail businesses where their customer base has a certain amount of churn and they appeal to a certain customer base. And baby goods and we both came out of that industry, is a really good example of that, is that you are constantly looking for new customers because eventually people stop having children. And so your customer base is constantly evolving. But if you've fallen into the trap of thinking, oh, my customer is me, because quite often you start your business because you're at a certain point in your life, or you see a need, and your business evolves to a certain extent, and then you grow out of it. It's no longer about you. It's not you. You are not your customer. And we'll talk about that a bit in a minute. But I see people fall into the trap of evolving their business to where they're at in their personal life and forgetting that actually their customer is still back in the I'm a first-time parent, or I'm really lost and I really need some knowledge and I really need your guidance on these things, and they lose sight of that. So I think it's just constantly checking in with your customer, who they are, where they're at. Has your business evolved so that you're actually more knowledgeable and that you need to step up into that arena?
Yeah.
So yeah, just being really...
And I think that's really poignant, because this is where we get a lot of customers when they're at this point, which is where it's, do I need to change my business? So what we find is we get these people who, as they've grown, because the baby industry is a very great analogy, because as your kids get older, you think, oh, we need stuff for older kids, and you keep adding these things in.
Yeah, and then you're losing these customers. Yeah, absolutely. You've lost
the whole point of differentiation. So then you have to make a choice. You have to decide, do you want to go back and just serve that niche, or do you want to grow? And in which case we have to change the way that we talk to our customers. We have to change the brand. We have to change the branding. And by that, we mean your brand voice, the way you connect with your customers. You don't have to change your logo in that situation.
No. And in some cases, you actually see that that development of a new logo, in some cases, a new logo is well warranted, but
yes.
Often what you see is you lose actually a great deal of collateral that you've got in that logo by getting rid of it, just because you think that's going to fix the issue. And it's really interesting. In the last few years, I've seen this real kind of common thread and this trend that not a lot of brands seem to be putting much effort into, wooing their customers and enticing them to fall in love with them. It is all very
There's like an expectation, isn't it? There's like this expectation, you will like my stuff.
Yeah. It's almost like, I think the digital platform and with the growth of that, and you and I both came in, I'd had a retail business that before online was even a thing, and then both of us came into our businesses at a point where that was burgeoning and it was becoming, and I know you were one of the first people to even be using Facebook to sell product back in the days where you could say, Elizabeth Guthrie is happy today.
No pictures back then.
No sentences. I hated it. Can you imagine me trying to distill a conversation into 20 characters? So yeah, it's really, there was this expectation of I've got this thing and it's really easily accessible to a big market, so I'm going to just dump it down on this platform and I'm just going, and people will just come. And that is like that speed dating thing. It's like sliding into the chair, sitting down in your Metallica t-shirt or your do not wake me, I'm asleep t-shirt and shorty shorts, and going, well, here I am. And once you ask me some questions, I'm going to be able to tell you exactly what I do. And people have got past that. They've gone, no, you know what? This is a cluttered space. I've got plenty of other people I can choose from. Thank you very much.
So I think a great example, and we can talk about, well, let's just jump in and talk about that, is Rachel and Greg that we just worked with recently, who thought, amongst other things, what they really needed was their shop to be rejigged. So they had a cafe and a gallery, their shop to be rejigged, and they thought they needed a new logo. Did we give them a new logo? No,
but that's like on this much of the...
Yeah. But let's maybe just talk about, just quickly, we'll kind of sum up the conversations that we had with them, which was all based around their brand and the outcomes, because what I find really exciting is even during COVID and even during all the crap that's been happening, the results that they've gotten.
Getting an email from Rachel, a week or so ago, and that they were in lockdown and closed for, as were many people, for months and months and months, and they used that as an opportunity to better. They wanted to focus on making some changes to their store, but they went about it really systematically, and they kind of started with the foundation, and we were looking at a whole raft of things. So the kinds of conversations we were having with them, we were trying to work out who their customers were, who did they want their customers.
Yeah, and what did those customers want?
But not just who were their customers now, but who did they want their customers to be? Who did they want to appeal to? And sometimes saying, I don't want a particular person is actually more powerful than saying, I want a particular person. So quite often with my clients, I start with, well, who don't you want? And what they didn't want was the freeloaders. They didn't want the people who came in on a tour bus
and paid $7
one magnet, but sat there and spread their lunches out on their cafe tables and had their BYO lunch on their tables. They didn't want those people. So when we worked with them, there were sort of stickers everywhere saying, don't sit here, and you can't bring your own lunch, and blah blah blah, and people just ignored it. And so what we talked to them about was changing the whole customer experience so that it was quite obvious that those people were actually not welcome. And I know as a retailer, it's sort of like, and it's like, I'll take anyone's money, but if they're not the customers that you want, then, and how do you appeal? They wanted these high-end customers who were going to buy this high-end product, that were going to sit and have a lobster for lunch. How are you going to get those people in if you still have an experience that appeals to people who bring their own and stick it on a picnic table?
And if your brand is sticking, oh my goodness, I think we counted something like 30 pieces of paper taped around the shop.
I don't even think I counted.
But now there's no pieces of paper.
No, because it's quite clear. This is a restaurant, and this gift shop here, this sells expensive stuff. So if you want to buy a $2 magnet, that's fine. You can just go buy it over there. But this stuff, this has a story and a history. So the kind of things we were looking at were, who were the customers? Were the customers they had? Who did they want? What did those customers desire when they came into that space? And what kind of experience did they want to have?
For? Yeah.
And I think a big mistake that people make we can see a bit of crossover is, we see people in the online space who don't think about that experience and that customer experience. It's like, oh, I've got an online store, whatever. There's no experience. But you know what it's like when you go to a website and you go, oh my God, this is, I want to be the person in that lifestyle photo.
Yeah.
I want to be that person wearing that jumper, or, you resonate with that. So we looked at what their customers, what was stopping them from buying, what was going to entice them to buy or to purchase, what made them feel energized or comfortable, or whatever the emotion is that your customers want to feel when they're buying from you. We looked at the kind of conversations and language, and sometimes for an online store, it would be about what kind of language do they use. And you used the example of Chubby's Shorts. I think you just threw it in there.
Yeah, we love Chubby's Shorts. Love their brand.
Chubby's Shorts know exactly who they're talking to, and they talk to them like that. When I write your stuff, your voice is in my head. I write it in, it's about saying.
I even send you music sometimes to listen to.
So, and then in your store, it's the kind of, what kind of language do these people use? What do they want to hear you say? And it's not about being ingenuine. It's about finding, and this is where I think we'll talk a little bit about finding that balance between what does your customer want and what do you have? And that's where that branding sweet spot is when you can marry those two things up together. It's not about being something that you're not.
Yeah.
It's about being the very best version of you that you are.
This is why I get really irked when I see on Facebook, and to be fair, I don't spend an awful lot of time there these days, because I got so sick of people saying, I'm looking at having a rebrand because I'm not getting the amount of customers that I want. but what they're really saying when you dig into it is, I just want a new logo and a new color scheme. And it's like, that's not going to help you get more
but that's
customers.
a little bit like saying, I want a new hairdo, or I want a whole new wardrobe, but you actually haven't taken the time to work out what it is that really reflects you. And I think a lot of us hit, our 40s and we go, oh, I feel okay. I don't have to feel like I have to fit into someone else's idea of what I am. And so it's this freedom that comes from finding out, what it is you do differently and what is unique about you, and being able to sell that.
And I think that's where a business is a great vehicle for that, because it's not about you personally. Sure, it might emulate your beliefs and your ethos, but people are connecting with that brand because of what it stands for. And if that doesn't have to be you, that can be so much more. And generally, like you said earlier, it is this, it's kind of what you were hoping for, but on steroids.
Yeah.
Because it can be so much bigger.
A great example of that is when I opened my first business, I was completely convinced that my customer was me. Because what I didn't know any different. I just figured I wanted this stuff, therefore they would want this stuff. And so my whole persona was about, it just sort of married, it was just me. It was just an extension of me. And what I didn't actually realize is my customers weren't me. My customers were people who were analytical, who were very regimented, but who really wanted to be creative. They really wanted to have bright colored stuff in their house. But when they got to the shops, they went, oh, just pick the white one. And I joke because, you can see, I have one white feature wall in my house because, I'm brave enough to do those things. Those people wanted to be, they wanted to be me. When I opened my second business, I kind of had a better handle on that. And I was in that eco baby goods kind of space, but when it was just
before
starting
it was
and germinating. And what I had worked out is my customers they wanted the antithesis to the crunchy mama stuff. They didn't want the upcycled furniture. They didn't want the shabby chic. They didn't want, a timber. They wanted Scandi. They wanted white. They wanted to come in and go, oh, this is a boutique. This is quite clinical. Not me. Like, look at this is me.
I was just saying, if you're watching the video, I think it's hilarious that you look at your background and my background,
and yours.
And it is very, very obvious which of us is the dot point analytic person looking at my background and which one has the crazy brain.
Yeah. Which one has the very bright wallpaper and the Frida Kahlo painting?
And which one has the whiteboard with dot points all down the back?
Yeah. So
do you think, just from saying that, do you think a way of summing this up is people buy from you to become a better version of themselves, to make them the next best version? And it doesn't matter if you're selling running shoes or if you're selling makeup or if you're selling furniture. Why they're buying from you is because when they do, they're going to feel better about themselves.
Yeah, I don't always think it's about the aspiration. I think there's a certain element of that. And I think that if your customer is an aspirational buyer, so that I want to become, I want to look like that person using those silicone plates in that beautiful white kitchen with those two beautifully dressed children. Oh my God, if I buy those plates, that is what my life is going to look like. That's very much that aspirational buy. But then there's other people who, and I think that's where you have to actually find out what is it that your customer is looking for. If you make the assumption that your customer is an aspirational buyer, then, and they're not, and if what they want to do is actually feel like the choices they've made are that they've got permission to make the buying choices that they've made. Does that make sense? So, for that, in that, again, using that example of that eco baby space, is my customers weren't aspirational to a sense. They wanted people to go, that weird thing you want to do, we've got your back. It's okay. We can tell you all you need to know so that you can tell everyone who tells you that you're mad that actually you're okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but in my head, that's still a better version of yourself.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I guess it's just
that's why we work well together.
Yeah. I think either way, it's about you don't do that unless you are creating some mojo between you, and when I say you, I mean your brand, your product, your business, your store. If you're a service-based business, it's about between your service. It's about you and the person you're trying to lure. And,
yes.
and courting. I love that whole idea of that you're courting this person, but you've got to do it like a speed date because you're courting them, but you've only got that much time to kind of make an impression.
And I think that was probably the most pertinent part of working with Rachel and Greg is when they started to understand that brand, it all fell into place. And sure, we changed some colors and we changed the timber and things like that, but we created the thing that we actually created the thing that in their head they thought they had. And it wasn't until they saw the finalized version that they realized they finally got what was in their head.
Didn't have it.
They were finally giving their customers this brand that they built in their head.
Yeah.
Had never managed to translate it.
Absolutely.
And what was the result?
And I think that's really powerful, that having that, like you say, having that really strong foundation of who your customer is, what they like, who you are, what you offer, all of those things. When you can really confidently communicate those things, you start making really strong decisions about everything in your business. It's like, it is the foundation that everything's built on. It dictates how you design your website, how you fit out your shop, what you write in your social media posts, what you put in a Facebook ad, what products you include in your product range, how you communicate to your customers. It's the list is never ending. It's this foundation. And what I see time and time again is people who can, particularly as a copywriter, people come to me and they say, I need you to rewrite my product descriptions. And I say, oh yeah, okay, no worries. Oh, they've got to be SEO optimized. Well, yes, that's true, they do. And I want them to be punchy and it's like, yeah, okay, well, who are you talking to? And they go, oh no, just write it. Like, just get the supplier page and just kind of rewrite it. Well, what is that? It's like throwing spaghetti at a wall. Let's put some more Facebook ads, but we don't really know who we're targeting. Let's build a new website. Oh yeah, but how are people going to experience that website? What do they want? Do they want it all on one page? Do they want to click through? Do they want, what do they want?
Flat lay images? Do they want
flat lay images? Do they want lifestyle images? Like what? All of those things. And so if you start rolling those things out and put the cart before the horse, if you don't know who you're creating those things for and what you're offering, then it's like chucking spaghetti at a wall. Sure, some of it will stick until it slides down.
It's also chucking money down the drain.
It is,
how much money do we see people wasting?
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing that people don't realize is that people who, when customer, people say, oh, well, surely it's just about getting as many people in the door as you possibly can. But the reality is that if a customer falls in love with what you do, and let's just use that as a general, if they really love what you do and they're really connected to you, it is no different than a real life relationship. People who when customers fall in love with a business, they are more likely to stick around. They're less likely to be lured away by the next bright, shiny thing.
Price doesn't become a differentiator. They don't care.
They're prepared to do whatever it takes to stay in that relationship with you. You spend less money because you're not finding new customers all the time. They do your marketing for you because they tell all their friends about you. So it's a really, really powerful tool in a business to really focus on that and nail it.
I know you're about to tell us about Rachel and Greg. Someone has to keep us on track here. So Rachel and Greg were in an area of Tasmania that was closed, like 100% closed throughout COVID. No visitors were coming into Tasmania once they opened back up again. And even though, correct me if I'm wrong, because Rachel sent you the stats, even though they were closed for 3 months of the year, is that correct?
Yeah, I think it was, like March, April to June or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So
July they reopened. Yeah.
What was the result?
What? Yeah, you're putting me on the spot now. My understanding is that they had surpassed their turnover
from the same time last year.
From the same time last year, but they don't. For the month of June, I think it was, they had surpassed their turnover, and they'd only been open 10 days.
Yeah.
With their new fit out, and so.
And they're not even finished yet. Let's be honest.
They're not finished.
They haven't been able to get a lot of the stuff.
I think the thing that was really exciting is to hear Rachel say, our staff now know the story. Like, one of the things we worked with them was that their customers were prepared to pay big money for unique product. They didn't want to buy a fridge magnet and a t-shirt and a little stuffed Tasmanian tiger. They wanted to buy artisan product. They were adventurers. They wanted a story. And so Rachel and Greg had product that just sort of sat there, and there was no story. It was a bowl. There was a wooden bowl.
It was a $2,000 wooden bowl. Can I just say the wooden bowl we talked about very often was a $2,000 wooden bowl. Yeah. I'm very proud to say.
Pretty sure they sold the $2,000 wooden bowl in the first day.
Bowl in the first week. Yeah.
Yeah, because what they recognised was that when those customers came in, they were saying, look at this wooden bowl. Look at the story. Here's where it was made. This is what it's made out of. They spent an extra 5 or 10 minutes with every customer who walked in the door, and it's paid dividends. But and it's as much as we say, oh yeah, but if you spend time with a customer, it's going to pay off. It's about knowing that is what their customers wanted. That is the experience that they wanted. That is the information that they wanted. And until then, their whole minds had been focused on, how do we manage the free pool? How do we manage the tire kickers? And I think we do that all the time. We're trying to manage the people we don't want, instead of saying, let me manage you out the way and focus on you, of who I want.
We have this thing where if you have that customer that is constantly hassling you and asking for a refund because they're not happy, just give them the refund and tell them not to do that. Like, we are okay with that. Because the effort you put into that person is never going to be returned. 9.5 times out of 10, that person is never going to become a high value customer. And I think what I took away with working with Rachel and Greg was, when they understood their brand, their whole team came on board. It wasn't it wasn't in their heads anymore. Their team was so excited about telling the stories, about being able to connect with the customers, with having talking points and directing people to the website, because they didn't have an e-commerce shop. They've now got an e-commerce shop.
Yeah.
Being able to say to people, oh, if you like that and you're not quite ready, you can always come back and get it from the website. So they had this, they now have this way of connecting with their customers once they've left. But
absolutely.
And the other thing it did, I don't know if this was for Rachel or one of their other clients, is it got rid of the team members who didn't want to be part of the vision.
Yeah.
And that is so important to me.
That is so important.
Know what your brand stands for. And I don't care if that is convenience or fun or something eco or sustainability or giving back. If you don't know what that is and you don't communicate that to everybody, then you attract not just the wrong customers, but you attract the wrong team as well. And if you don't have a great team, I know I've got a great team, but if you don't have a great team, you are constantly going to be fighting fires.
Yeah.
And this is why the brand is like the first thing you start with.
Yeah.
Because if you get this wrong, you screw up the whole thing.
Absolutely.
I reckon there are some people thinking, holy crap, I need to go and look at my brand. Awesome team member that you are. Have you created something for the people listening to this podcast to go and do a brand audit?
we have a download. You're going to ask me what the URL is for it, aren't you? Or do
but you haven't created that yet, have you? We can make that up on the fly. All right, SelenaKnight.com/brand audit.
Brand audit. Oh, look at that.
Or one word or 2 words, because they're going to be people are going to be thinking, is that one word or two?
Let's do it. This is where you have to write it down to make sure you don't do any like weird ass. I can't even tell you what I see when I see the word physiotherapist.
Yes.
You can write it all as one word and see what it comes up with. Brand audit. Let's do it with a dash.
Okay. So SelenaKnight.com/brand-audit, or just click the podcast and there'll be a great big button that Elizabeth will stick on there so that you can click it and you can download it. And that's beautiful. It's a bit of a checklist, isn't it? That helps you go through and work out what to focus on.
And I just want to leave people with two little tips if they are looking at their own brand. And these are my 2 hot tips, and these are things that we've been working on in this business but also with our clients. Is I think the 2 most important factors when it comes to defining your branding is authenticity, showing up as who you are, the very best version of yourself. It's like showing up at a speed date and feeling comfortable in your skin. You know, if you're cool, glamorous, sporty, adventurous, you know, just showing up. And you know, anyone who's tried to play the cool, glamorous girl at school or, you know, in their life ever, when you're really actually just a weird ass creative, it's exhausting. And people see through it.
Very quickly.
And then the second one is consistency, and it's about showing up in places looking like you. So not having a website that looks like one thing and a Facebook page that looks like something else, and your store looks completely different, and your logo jars with all of that, and what you say is quite different to what your photos look like, and you've got 10 different photos. You know, it used to take 3, it now takes 7 times for something to cross your eyes, cross your brain, for you to recognize it as something trustworthy. And if you show up and you look different every time if someone comes across you, it's like reinventing the wheel 7 times. So that real consistency, just consistently showing up, looking like you.
Yeah. And whatever that brand looks like.
Absolutely.
Alrighty. Well, thank you. We finally did it. We finally got on the podcast.
That's it. Can't come back again.
I reckon you'll be back. So what did we decide? SelenaKnight.com/brand-audit.
Yep.
We're going to stick a link on the show notes, and you can download that brand audit checklist that Elizabeth uses and I use when we bring on new clients. So a little bit behind the scenes. Thank you so much.
See ya.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. You can find all of the show notes over at SelenaKnight.com. If you found something that you heard today particularly useful, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, feel free to share this episode with someone that you think could benefit by listening to it. Want more retail biz strategies? You can watch the Bringing Business to Retail TV show, where each week I'll answer a question or provide you with a simple, actionable retail biz strategy that you can implement in your business right away. If you have a question or a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Drop my team an email at podcast@selenaknight.com, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week.